The Gilded Shadows of Albion. This is a fictional historical novel and not based on real events. In the waning light of a 17th-century England, where myths mingled with the dusty truths of daily survival, a gentle wind carried the scent of both hope and despair over the ancient cobblestones of Albion. Here, in a land of sprawling estates and impoverished hamlets, hearts sought redemption amid tumult and upheaval. The story unfolds in a single unbroken narrative that weaves the lives of a spirited array of characters, their layered emotions interlaced in each fleeting moment of destiny. Edward Thornwood, a compassionate nobleman with eyes that spoke of a gentle resolve and fierce empathy, walked along Westminster's narrow alleyways late one evening. As the twilight danced upon the aged stone, he recalled the days of his youth, where dreams and reality intertwined in a delicate cadence reminiscent of a long-forgotten lullaby. Edward's every step resounded with the echoes of an England emerging from the ravages of civil discord, where the old order trembled beneath the stirring demands of change. His journey was not solitary. Fate had entwined his destiny with that of many others whose stories glowed with the subtle radiance of undaunted hope. In a modest cottage at the edge of a sprawling village known as Briarwood, a place that leaned on the legends of its past as much as on the fragile scaffolding of its present lives, lived Catherine Bellamy. With radiant optimism underscoring every smile, Catherine had learned at an early age to cherish the gift of life amidst the hardship and sorrow of poverty. Her laugh, resonating like silver bells in the quiet morning, belied the trials that had tempered her spirit and lent her soul a profound empathy for the downtrodden. When the winds of fate began to shift, Catherine's path and Edward's journey converged with unexpected immediacy. Their meeting was set against a backdrop of luminous skies and barren fields, as if nature itself was conspiring to merge two disparate lives on a common journey toward renewal. Edward, ever the seeker of truth, stepped into the modest parlour of Catherine's home. He discovered not only the warmth of hearth but also the fervour of an unyielding heart. Amid the subdued lamplight, their conversation burst forth in earnest dialogue, a meeting of minds passionate about the beauty and tragedy of their times. "Miss Bellamy," Edward said softly with a tone that carried equal parts admiration and sorrow, "it is in you that I see the potential for England to heal. Your spirit, so full of life, reminds me that even in the darkest moments, the light of hope is eternal." "Mr. Thornwood," Catherine replied, her eyes reflecting both the vulnerability of youth and the wisdom of hard-won resilience, "we must nurture hope even as we lament the injustices of our world. For what is life if we cannot find kindness and understanding among one another?" Thus began an intertwined journey which took the pair across the green and misty expanses of England, a kingdom at a crossroads where the old aristocracy, large estates, and impoverished villages collided with the ideals of progress and social reform. In the bustling market of York, in the shadow of grand cathedrals and manors built with equal parts pride and burden, they encountered William Ashford, a determined scribe of modest means but unwavering ambition. William, with a keen intellect and a pen that never shied away from the raw truths of his society, chronicled the lives of the people whom the rigid class structures had long oppressed. The narrative wove its way through sumptuous feasts in the great halls of noble families and desolate nights spent under the starry skies of uncultivated lands. Along the journey, Edward, Catherine, and William found themselves in dialogue with characters such as Benjamin Lark, a rough-hewn tradesman with a penchant for gentle humour despite the hardships of his trade, and Margaret Sinclair, a resourceful widow whose determination allowed her to carve a place for herself in a male-dominated society. In every encounter, the characters, though vastly different in birth and experience, shared a common thread, a hope that the future could be far kinder than the past. The sprawling English countryside, with its rolling hills of emerald and villages clustered like jewels upon the dew-laden lawns, provided a vivid canvas upon which the drama of life was painted in broad, sweeping strokes. Amid the lush greenery of Kent and the rugged moors surrounding Newcastle, whispered rumours of reform and revolution abounded. England itself seemed to be in a state of gentle metamorphosis, its old societal orders shaking in their foundations while new philosophies took root, nurtured by voices of compassion and reason. Edward and Catherine's travels quickly became emblematic of an age when the barriers of wealth, rank, and origin were beginning to falter. They spent long evenings discussing the inequities of their society in quiet cafes and taverns, not with disdain, but with the hope that by sharing ideas, change might blossom as naturally as a flower in spring. Their discourse was filled with the sort of realistic dialogue cherished by every thoughtful soul, a dialogue that straddled intellectual debate, earnest emotion, and the shared laughter of two hearts newly kindred in spirit. One crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves drifted lazily upon the cobblestones of a sleepy village near Winchester, Catherine encountered a humble yet profoundly insightful character named Henry Miller. Henry, a miller by trade and a philosopher by inclination, carried with him the wisdom of a man who had witnessed the constancy of life's cycles, the joy of harvest and the sorrow of loss. Over a steaming cup of tea in his modest mill-house, he expounded upon the deeper significance of recompense and aspiration, drawing from both religious parables and the earthy realities of working-class existence. "You see, dear Catherine," Henry explained with a quiet intensity, "our society is an intricate tapestry, a blend of threads so varied that no single strand can claim dominance. Each life, be it noble or common, contributes to the grand design. It is this unyielding thread of humanity, woven painstakingly through the years, that binds us all together." Catherine nodded, absorbing the resonant truth of his words. "Indeed, Mr. Miller, it feels as if the revolutions of our hearts must be mirrored by a revolution in the fabric of our nation. The old restraints must be cast aside for us to embrace a future where every man and woman is valued for the light they bring to this world." The story of Albion advanced through seasons of hope and sorrow. In the bustling, contemporary capital of London, amidst the echoing footsteps along the River Thames and grand reflections in the mirrored facades of stately mansions, Edward found himself caught in the middle of political intrigue and social unrest. There, in a hidden corridor of the ancient Palace of Westminster, he overheard murmurs that foretold sweeping reforms which would either mend the deep-rooted fissures in society or plunge the realm further into strife. With an unwavering determination to forge a future steeped in both just governance and human decency, Edward set forth to mediate discussions between influential courtiers and representatives of the common folk. In the candlelit corridors of debate and the murmur of thunder rolling over the Thames, he endeavoured to bridge the gap between the world of commerce, aristocracy, and labour alike. His commitment was reminiscent of the noble heroes chronicled in the epics of old, a modern-day champion attuned to the subtle pleas of society's downtrodden. One evening, in the grandeur of Westminster Hall, he engaged in a dialogue with Lord Reginald Fairchild, a man whose family had once dominated the political discourse of England. The conversation was measured and respectful, yet laden with the weight of historical grievances and an earnest desire for reconciliation. "Lord Fairchild," Edward began, his voice resonant amidst the hushed assembly, "our nation's strength lies not in the entrenchment of privilege but in our shared capacity for love and understanding. Let us not squander this precious chance for the healing of our fractured society." Lord Fairchild, with a kind yet conflicted heart, responded, "Sir Edward, your words echo the sentiments of a brighter future. It is my sincerest wish that through collaboration, our people may discover the freedom not only to prosper materially, but to cherish the true wealth of unity and compassion." As Edward traversed this complex web of political allegiances and social reforms, Catherine and William dedicated themselves to chronicling the stories of ordinary people, artisans, labourers, and smallholders whose lives were rarely recorded by history's grand annals. In the dust of small workshops and the simplicity of parish meetings, their narrative found the kind of poetic truth that Victor Hugo might have extolled, the suspenseful intricacies of Ken Follett's historical panorama, and the vibrant romanticism celebrated by Alexander Dumas. Their journey led them to the ancient Abbey of Canterbury, a once sacred site of pilgrimage now serving as a beacon of intellectual revival. Within its time-worn walls, amid inscriptions carved by monks long gone, they uncovered manuscripts that anticipated the very social reforms about to reshape the nation. A sense of destiny settled over them like a soft mantle, for the ideas enshrined in those pages were timeless, an enduring reminder that the spirit of progress was intrinsically interwoven with faith, honor, and the eternal quest for equality. In the course of their travels, the three companions encountered countless individuals whose personal struggles embodied the broader contrasts of their era. Among these was the spirited Annabel Grey, a widow-turned-resilient educator who had transformed a dilapidated community school into a sanctuary of enlightenment and progressive thought. With unwavering conviction and a tender heart, Annabel instilled confidence in the children of Briarwood, urging them to look beyond traditional hierarchies and instead value wisdom and empathy. "Children," Annabel would say, "remember that your worth is measured not by the titles you inherit, but by the goodness you spread in this world. In every act of kindness, you sow the seeds of a better tomorrow." The reverberations of her words crossed social boundaries and resounded in the hearts of many. Those living in the opulent manors of the elite, such as the celebrated Lady Eleanor and her illustrious family, found themselves challenged by the new tide of change. Lady Eleanor, reputed for her intellect and quiet nobility, began to question the rigid conventions of her class. In her private library lined with well-worn tomes of philosophy and literature, she penned reflections on justice and compassion that promised to awaken the dormant conscience of the aristocracy. Meanwhile, in the many corners of England along the foggy banks of the River Tyne, in the bustling streets of Bristol, and amid the rolling hills of the Cotswolds, small rebellions of the spirit emerged. They were not violent, but gentle transformations born of a deep, shared recognition that the old world must gradually give way to new ideas of freedom and dignity. As winter descended upon England, draping the landscape in a serene layer of frost and quiet snowfall, Edward, Catherine, and their companions gathered in a modest chapel near Oxford. The wood-panelled interior, lit by the soft glow of numerous candles, served as the stage for an impromptu conversation that would capture the essence of their collective transformation. There, in the muted cheer of that humble sanctuary, voices rose in earnest debate about the future of governance, the necessity of reform, and the timeless values of trust and fraternity. "We stand at the threshold of a new era," Edward declared, his voice imbued with the brilliance of both hope and resolve. "It is incumbent upon us to bridge the past with a future that honors every individual's potential. Let our endeavors be guided by compassion rather than ambition, by understanding rather than prejudice." Catherine, clasping her hands with fervent determination, added, "The struggles we witness in society today are but the seeds from which a more equitable world can grow. Even in our darkest times, a single act of kindness can illuminate the path toward justice and reconciliation." In that sacred space of shared ideals, the companions reaffirmed their commitment to a poor yet powerful vision, a vision where wealth, status, and privilege might one day be measured not by material means, but by the generosity of the human heart. Their dialogue was not simply a reflection of political ambition, it was an enduring call to the better angels of humanity, a plea for a society where every soul could experience dignity and respect. As the seasons turned once more and the frost melted into the tender embrace of spring, the revitalized spirit of Albion began to unfurl across its cities and countryside. Reforms were gradually introduced by visionary leaders whose efforts, though fraught with resistance and bureaucratic entanglements, began to soften the hardened structures of privilege. Edward Thornwood, ever the mediator and passionate advocate for justice, continued to work diligently in the corridors of power. Amid heated debates and unexpected alliances, his relationships with Lady Eleanor and Lord Fairchild deepened, forging bonds that transcended social status and historical enmities. The narrative that had begun on a quiet, then fading evening in the narrow streets of London now blossomed like the tender petals of a spring rose. Catherine Bellamy, ceaseless in her determination to uplift and empower those around her, devoted herself to nurturing the minds of the oppressed, offering education and insightful guidance to those who had long been denied a voice. Her work in the modest schools and meeting houses of Briarwood reaped a quiet revolution, a transformation observed in the improved lives of the children and the respectful consciousness of the older generations. William Ashford, the chronicler of untold tales, produced a series of manuscripts that captured the essence of this transformative period. His writings, marked by careful scrutiny and imbued with the empathy of a true observer, documented the struggles and triumphs of ordinary people with a clarity that resonated in the hearts of both noble and commoner alike. His observations, laced with social commentary that was as trenchant as it was compassionate, painted an honest picture of a society in metamorphosis, one where the weary souls of the past slowly found solace in the promise of a kinder future. Amid festivities in the rejuvenated public squares, toasts raised in humble taverns and grand banquets alike, a spirit of reconciliation began to loom large over the once divided landscape. In taverns and drawing rooms, debates softened to shared laughter, and long-held grudges imaginable only in bitter recollections began to wane under the warm glow of newfound understanding. The genteel civility propagated by Edward and his compatriots served as a gentle reminder that beneath the veneer of historical conflict lay a deep reservoir of human goodness, one that could inspire unity even in the most disjointed fragments of society. One wondrous afternoon, as light spilled across the ancient facades of Bath and Cheltenham, Edward found a moment of respite by a tranquil stream in the outskirts of Bath. Seated on a moss-covered stone, he allowed his thoughts to wander through the labyrinth of memories, the childhood dreams of a fair and just society, the challenging debates with learned peers, and the hopeful smiles shared with Catherine as they contemplated a future free from prejudice. "How strange it is," he murmured to himself, watching as the water danced in playful ripples, "that in the midst of turmoil and strife, there remains an immutable truth, that the power to create change lies within each resonant heartbeat of humankind." His inner monologue was a soft echo of the sentiments echoed by his dear acquaintances, a silent promise that transformation, though slowly nurtured, would indeed become the cornerstone of a better England. Throughout the remaining days and months of that fateful year, the interconnected lives of Edward, Catherine, William, and those they had inspired wove themselves into an intricate tapestry of hope, struggle, and the indomitable human spirit. Their conversations, conducted in the quiet intimacy of late-night rendezvous or in the bustling, crowded parlours of ancient manors, seemingly carried the luminescence of dawn to the furthest corners of their troubled world. In one memorable exchange beneath the sprawling oak trees of a sun-dappled park, Margaret Sinclair confided in a close friend, Benjamin Lark, "Have you ever believed that perhaps all this suffering may ultimately forge a society built not on power, but on compassion and humility? I believe that our generation has the strength to reimagine the world in gentler, kinder terms." Benjamin, with the earnest simplicity of a working man but the soul of a poet, responded, "Indeed, Margaret, sometimes it is in the humblest heart where the greatest courage is found. We are the quiet architects of a future that promises to embrace even those long-forgotten souls. Our struggles have a purpose to act as the chisel that sculpts a more enduring monument of justice and empathy." As twilight approached one final, magnificent evening, the once disparate voices of a nation began to merge in a chorus of resolute hope. Under a sky ablaze with the hues of a setting sun, crimson and gold mingling in a celestial ballet, the dreams of these hardy souls intertwined with the enduring spirit of the land, casting aside old enmities and heralding the genesis of a renaissance built upon unity, humility, and the beauty of shared human endeavor. In that timeless hour, amidst the distant strains of a lilting ballad sung by a wandering minstrel along the river bank, Edward Thornwood beheld a future free of the bonds of prejudice, a future wherein the gilded shadows of the past were softened by the brilliant light of redeemed souls. Here, in the echoing corridors of history, the promise of a kinder England was etched into every stone, every whispered prayer, every fervent debate over plumes of quill and ink. And so it was that the lives of Edward, Catherine, William, and their many devoted companions became a living testament to the transformative power of compassion, courage, and human solidarity. Their story, woven delicately into the fabric of their time, served not only as a chronicle of England's journey through struggle to a new dawn, but also as a timeless beacon urging generations to rise above the shadows of injustice, to reconcile the past with hope, and to embrace each new day as an opportunity to sculpt a more perfect society. Even as the seasons turned and the spectral silhouettes of winter slowly gave way to the lush, resplendent green of revitalized spring, the ripple effects of that epical transformation extended far beyond the realms of personal ambition and individual destiny. The gentle revolution sparked in the heart of Albion was not merely the conquest of the oppressors by the oppressed, but the harmonious awakening of a collective spirit that understood that the future must be built upon foundations of empathy and shared commitment. In hushed, reverent tones, scholars, poets, and commoners alike began to recount the legacy of that remarkable era, embracing it not as a final act of liberation but as an ongoing journey where every compassionate act served as a tribute to the indomitable strength of the human spirit. And in the quiet corridors of memory, where echoes of long-gone debates still resonated, the story of Albion, with its intertwined destinies and luminous hearts, lived on as a gentle reminder that even in times of despair, love and understanding can lead the way toward redemption. Thus, as day succumbed to night and the stars emerged, each a tiny testament to hope, Edward, Catherine, William, and all those who had given voice to the quiet revolution, stood united in the belief that a kinder, more just world was possible. They had dared to dream, they had dared to speak out in a language that transcended wealth, status, and prejudice. In every whispered conversation, in every tear shed, and in every hearty laugh, the promise of renewal and unity resounded across the land like the gentle hymn of an everlasting spring. With the passing of years, the embers of that quiet revolution smoldered into vibrant flames. Historians, with their pens and parchments, captured the remarkable metamorphosis that reshaped a nation on the brink of despair into a tapestry of compassion, creativity, and progress. This vivid transformation, marked by real and enduring social commentary, was a tribute to countless souls who had joined together on a journey toward justice, human dignity, and the unwavering belief that even amidst adversity, the light of hope shines brightest. And so, dear reader, though this narrative has been told in the style of our storied past, blending the poetic grandeur of Victor Hugo, the meticulously detailed intrigue of Ken Follett, and the swashbuckling romance of Alexander Dumas, it remains an enduring fictional creation, one that exhorts us to remember that in every heart beats the potential for benevolence, unity, and a hope that defies time itself. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to my channel and check out the description to find out how you can support my work.